Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again for the sermon recap video. So Matthew chapter 5 verses 13 through 16 say this: "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This morning we talked about how the world has kind of been divided, especially in the Western church, for about 100 years. And it's been either you focus on saving souls or you focus on fixing systems. We see it in churches, we see it in social media, we see it in politics. Usually when a tragedy strikes, one of the first things we see is that it's politicized, and it's either we need to change hearts or we need to change systems. Some preach salvation without justice. Others preach justice without salvation. The problem is Jesus never separated the two things. So we're going to go through these two things that Jesus says that we are: salt and light, which is both truth and justice. You are light. This means that your presence matters. Your presence should matter. Your presence does matter when you're in Christ. In Jesus' words, in Jesus' world, salt was used to preserve and slow the decay for meat. And so when Jesus is saying that you are salt, he's describing the work of his followers in this world to slow and to be the antidote to decay and corruption of this world. So Jesus' followers are supposed to be stepping into broken places. They're supposed to be pushing back on injustice, keeping things from getting worse, especially for those who are marginalized. When salt shows up, it doesn't need to shout. When salt arrives, it just needs to be there for salt to slow the decay, to be the antidote for the corruption of this world. So when Christians don't show up, when Christians stay silent, when they blend in, they lose their impact and they lose their saltiness. So you are salt, but that's not all you are. You are light. Light reveals things, light guides, light pushes back on the darkness. Jesus says in verse 16, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This reminds me of a biblical truth that we see throughout the Bible. In Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, God says something interesting to Moses. God says to Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh." God says that. I've made you like God to Pharaoh. God's plan has always been, from the very beginning, for unbelieving people to look at us, but to see him. So if you fast forward to the end of that story in Exodus chapter 19, God doesn't just say that to Moses, but now he comes to the entire Israelite community and he says to the whole group, "You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." God tells Moses in chapter 7, "I'm going to make you like God to Pharaoh." And then God tells the whole group 12 chapters later, "All of the rest of you are going to be my people, and when they look at you, they will see me." If we fast forward to the New Testament, it's the same thing. In verse 16, Jesus says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now that's the big difference. When people see our deeds, we want it to glorify us. But what Jesus is saying is that when they see your deeds, it should lead people to glorifying God in heaven. Jesus was both salt and light. Sometimes we want to only be salt. We want to preserve. We want to have compassion without truth. Other people want to be only light. They just want to be a truth-telling wrecking ball in this world, and I just tell it how it is. But Jesus was both of these things, and Jesus didn't separate the two. He didn't even balance the truth. He embodied both of them at the same time. Jesus as light, Jesus as salt. John chapter 8, the woman caught in adultery, Jesus protects her, that's salt. And then he says, "Go and sin no more," that's light. Matthew 14, the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus sees the needs of the hungry and he meets their needs, that's salt. And then he teaches the truth, which is light. Luke chapter 19, the story of Zacchaeus, Jesus goes to his house, that's salt, and then he calls Zacchaeus to change, that's light. We need to be both salt and light in this world. Now, the world doesn't just try to separate us, it tries to help us to live into echoing chambers. And so when we are looking at the world, what we need to understand is that it doesn't just notice the tension, it actually feeds the tension. It doesn't just notice the division, it actually feeds the division. And so when Jesus walks the earth, he refuses to go into those boxes where the world's saying you're either this or you're either those. And Jesus walks what I call the messy middle. I've heard it recently called the holy middle. And that is this tension between both truth and love and being both light and salt in this world. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you're in a small group, that you guys have an amazing discussion this week. We'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.